We are tracking another tense situation. Iranian-backed militants hijacking a cargo ship in the Red Sea. 25 crew members taken hostage.
Massive container ships heading to the U.S. have caused waves in the maritime world. They've got people talking intensely about the implications and readiness of American ports. Their expected arrival is already signaling a need for better infrastructure and preparation. But the big question remains: can the U.S. make sure its ports are ready for these giants? Join us as we explore what just happened with the ultra-large container vessels sailing to the U.S. that shocked the world. Houthis, the enemy of the Red Sea. Recently, there was an attack by a group called the Houthis on the Red Sea. This made the U.S. House Subcommittee on Transportation and Infrastructure have a meeting to talk about what happened and what it means. What's interesting is that while they mainly talked about safety and politics, they kept talking about infrastructure too. This is important because it's what the committee is supposed to focus on. They wanted to know why infrastructure is such a big deal when it comes to the Red Sea and global sea traffic. To understand how ships move around the world, we can look at data about them. This data shows us that most ships start their journey in Asia and travel through the North Pacific Ocean. Some even go further north using the Great Circle route. When we think of the world as a globe, not just a flat map, it's easier to see how ships move. This data also helps us see how ships try to avoid bad weather. We can see lots of ships starting from the Straits of Malacca and going towards South Africa. Others follow the eastern coast towards the Indian Ocean. This shows us how ships move strategically to stay safe and on track. In the middle of this complicated system, marine traffic focuses on finding big container ships that can carry more than 16,000 containers for more study. When we use this smart method, we notice something interesting. We started paying attention to the huge container ships that come from East Asia. These massive ships start their journey from the busy port of Singapore. Then, they travel through the Malacca Straits to reach the Colombo terminal in Sri Lanka. Usually, these giant ships follow a well-known path through the Gulf of Aden, the Bab el-Mandeb, and the Red Sea. After that, they head to the Mediterranean. But because of the fighting with the Houthis, things have changed. These big ships are now taking a different route. So, how does this change affect the Red Sea? The effect of the Red Sea crisis on marine traffic. Many of these big ships now gather in two important places, the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. Some even try to go around the blockade near Hodeidah. Normally, these ships follow a path that takes them around the bottom of Africa. This path leads them to busy ports in Alaris, Spain, or Tangier, Morocco. But sometimes they take a different route. They go through the big Mediterranean Sea instead. They might stop at famous places like Genoa, Italy, Pius, or Greece. It's interesting to see that these big ships don't go near the United States. Looking at a map, you can see where these ships go and where they don't. This map tells us a lot about how ships travel between Asia and Europe. The map focuses on three big groups of shipping companies: 2 Million, which includes Maersk and MSC Mediterranean Shipping, and the Ocean Alliance, which has COSCO, Evergreen, and CMACGM. When we look at the sizes of ships in these groups, we notice some interesting things. The ships in the 2 Million Alliance are really big, ranging from 19,000 to 24,000 containers on the Swan Line. But the Ocean Alliance's ships are a bit smaller, with an average size of about 12,700 containers. This tells us that container ships have been getting bigger over time. A person named John Paul Rodriguez, who knows a lot about transportation, has studied how container shipping has changed over the years. He has shown how containers have made a big difference in how things are moved around the world. Let's take a look back at the 1950s when container ships were first called Panamax ships because they were as big as the Panama Canal locks. This limited how big they could be. In the 1970s, things changed. Ships got bigger and could carry more containers. This change tells us a lot about how shipping has evolved. Now let's go back even further to understand this better. The emergence of post-Panama vessels. In the late 1980s, big changes happened in how things were moved by ships. There came new kinds of ships called post-Panamax vessels. These ships were even bigger than what the Panama Canal could handle. This was a big step forward in how ships were built and used for moving things around the world. With these bigger ships, ports needed to change too. They had to make their infrastructure better to handle all the things these ships could carry. As ships got bigger, ports had to get smarter. They had to find new ways to deal with the bigger ships and the many things they brought. This meant coming up with new ideas, like building taller cranes to lift things on and off the ships and making bigger places to store all the things. The newer ships also needed deeper water to float in, so ports had to dig deeper. All these changes show how shipping has kept getting better over time. The ships we have now are much different from the ones we had before. They are bigger, can carry more, and go to more places. This makes it easier to move things around the world. In the early 2000s, there was another big change in shipping. Very large container ships, also called VLCs, came into use. These ships were even bigger than before, carrying between 11,000 and 15,000 containers. Maersk, a big company in shipping, played a big part in this. They made new kinds of ships called E-Class and later Triple E-Class ships. These ships were not just bigger versions of the old ones. They were different in how they were built and what they could do. They were huge, with dimensions that would blow your mind. They were the giants of the sea, able to carry more things than ever before. This big increase in ship size helped shipping companies carry more things at once. It made moving stuff around the world easier and faster. This change made a big difference in how things were traded between countries and how things were moved from one place to another. But these big ships brought some problems with them. Because they were so huge, it was hard for them to dock at some ports and use the infrastructure there. They could only go to certain terminals around the world. This meant that ports had to change how they were built to fit these massive ships. They had to make things like cranes taller, make more room to store things, and make the port stronger to handle all the extra things. The expansion of important waterways. Around the middle of the 2000s, Panama decided to do something big. They wanted to make their canal better, so that it could handle bigger ships. They called it the Panama Canal Expansion Project. The goal was to make the canal wider and deeper, so that the bigger ships could go through more easily. This was a huge deal for shipping because it meant that ships could move between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans faster and carry more things. The Panama Canal's expansion was a game changer in how things were moved by ships. It meant that bigger ships could go through, making trade between oceans faster and smoother. The Suez Canal, another important waterway, also got bigger and better to keep up with the demand from bigger ships. By 2015, both canals had gotten major upgrades, making it easier for the huge ships to pass through and changing how ships traveled around the world. Because of these changes, a new kind of ship was made in 2014. They were called Neo-Panamax ships and were designed to fit through the expanded Panama Canal. These ships were even longer, measuring 366 meters. They made shipping even more efficient and changed the routes that ships took. Now, navigating the Panama Canal is easier, and even bigger ships can pass through, carrying loads of up to 15,000 containers. The manufacture of bigger vessels and its effects. In the middle of the 2010s, there was a big change in the shipping world. Even bigger ships were introduced, like the Maersk Triple E-Class, which could carry up to 18,000 containers. After that, even larger ships came along, called Megabox 24AS, which could hold between 20,000 and 24,000 containers. These massive ships are about 400 meters long, 61 meters wide, and have a depth of 16 meters. This was a huge step forward in how ships were built, showing how far maritime engineering had come. Accommodating such massive ships requires big changes to the ports they visit. This includes digging deeper in the water, raising bridges so the ships can pass underneath, and using special cranes to move the containers on and off the ships. However, these huge ships haven't been seen much in the United States. This is mostly because the ports there aren't set up to handle them. However, the rise of the Houthis, a group resistance movement from Yemen, and their control over important areas in Yemen, including key shipping routes, has had a big impact on global shipping. Ships have had to change their routes to avoid the conflict areas, like going around Africa instead of through the Suez Canal. This has made shipping more complicated and caused problems for shipping companies trying to move things around the world. Accommodating such massive vessels requires significant infrastructure upgrades, including dredging ports, raising bridges to allow passage, and installing specialized cranes. Despite their immense capacity, the arrival of these ultra-large container ships and Mega 24S in the United States has been limited, primarily due to infrastructure constraints. This issue became evident in December 2023 with the emergence of the Houthis due to the Israel-Palestinian conflict in Gaza. The Houthis originated in the 1990s as a Zaidi Shia movement in northern Yemen. Initially, a local religious and political movement seeking greater autonomy and representation for Yemen's Zaidi Shia population, it evolved into a broader insurgency over time, gaining support from various groups and tribes across Yemen. By 2014, the Houthi resistance, in alliance with forces loyal to former President Ali Abdullah Saleh, seized control of the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, ousting the government of President Abdrabbu Mansur Hadi. This sparked a complex and protracted conflict involving regional powers and international actors concerned about Iranian influence in Yemen. Saudi Arabia and its allies launched a military intervention in support of President Hadi's government, exacerbating the conflict and leading to extensive humanitarian suffering. The emergence of the Houthi movement and their subsequent control over strategic areas in Yemen, including key maritime routes, have had profound implications for global shipping and trade. The diversion of container ships from their traditional routes through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal to avoid conflict zones has disrupted established shipping patterns and posed logistical challenges for maritime transport operators. The Houthis' role in the Yemen conflict and their control of important sea routes show how politics and trade are connected. This highlights the importance of having strong plans to manage risks in shipping. Countries and companies need to be prepared for how conflicts in one place can affect how ships move things around the world. Challenges at the U.S. ports. The current situation at U.S. ports is a big challenge because they're not ready for the huge container ships that are being used now. Ports like New York, Savannah, and Houston have problems because they haven't been dug deep enough, and their infrastructure is old. Some ports have been dug deeper to fit the new ships, but more money is needed to update and expand them. Companies like Maersk, Mediterranean Shipping, and Evergreen, which are owned by companies in other countries, are pushing for more investment in U.S. ports. They know that if ports work well, it's good for their business. They want ports to be able to handle bigger ships and more trade between countries. Maersk, one of the biggest shipping companies, wants the U.S. to improve its ports. They need ports to be efficient so that they can move goods between countries easily. To make U.S. ports better, they need to dig the harbors deeper, raise bridges so that big ships can pass underneath, and modernize the terminals. They also need to improve roads and railways so that things can be moved to and from ports smoothly. This will help the U.S. stay competitive in the world economy. The current state of U.S. ports poses a significant challenge in accommodating the increasing size of container ships. Ports like New York, Savannah, and Houston are facing limitations due to insufficient dredging and outdated infrastructure. While some ports have been dredged to accommodate Neo-Panamax vessels, more investment is needed to modernize and expand port facilities. Recognizing the importance of efficient port operations for their business interests, companies like Maersk, Mediterranean Shipping, and Evergreen are advocating for increased investment in port infrastructure by the United States. These companies, mostly owned by overseas entities, understand that efficient port operations are crucial for their global shipping operations. They recognize the need for increased investment to ensure that ports can handle larger vessels and the growing volume of international trade. Maersk, one of the world's largest container shipping companies, has been advocating for port development in the U.S. With their extensive global networks, these shipping companies rely on efficient port operations to facilitate the smooth movement of goods between continents. They understand the importance of investing in port facilities to remain competitive in the global shipping market. The investment required to upgrade U.S. ports includes dredging harbors to deepen shipping channels, raising bridges to allow clearance for larger vessels, and modernizing terminal facilities to enhance efficiency and throughput. Additionally, road and rail infrastructure investment is necessary to ensure seamless transportation of goods to and from ports. Enhancing U.S. port infrastructure is necessary to efficiently move goods and maintain the country's competitiveness in the global economy. Investing in port development can help the U.S. bring in more trade and money, create new jobs, and make the economy grow in cities and regions near ports. So the U.S. needs to work hard and keep improving its ports to meet the needs of today's shipping industry. One way ports handle things is by using a process called water shuttle, where water is moved from big ships to smaller trucks. But sometimes, big tankers can cause problems and mess up the balance. To stop this from happening, the cranes that move containers from ships to trucks need to be big enough. For example, huge ships like the Ever Ace need a lot of help to manage all the containers they bring in. This means ports need to have enough resources and good infrastructure to handle it all. Big shipping companies like Mediterranean Shipping, Maersk, and Evergreen are asking for more money to be put into port infrastructure by the U.S. This would take some pressure off the shipping route between Europe and Asia and make it easier to move things around. Everyone needs to work together to make ports better. Ports, governments, and shipping companies all need to cooperate to make sure ports can keep up with the changes in the shipping industry. Some of the biggest ships out there, like the Ever Ace and the Maersk E-Class, are famous for being huge. They're over 400 meters long and can carry more than 20,000 containers. They're some of the biggest container ships being used right now. Remedy of the Red Sea conflict. To deal with the infrastructure problems in the Red Sea, it's important to understand how events between countries, trade around the world, and how ships are used are all connected. The conflict in Yemen involving the Houthis has caused problems for ships that normally pass through the Red Sea. These ships have had to find different routes to avoid dangerous areas. This shows the need for a strong and flexible infrastructure that can handle changes in how shipping works. Handling big container ships is a big challenge that needs special equipment and good ports. Investing in port facilities is important for making sure trade routes around the world work well. Companies want to make their work smoother, be more efficient, and spend less money. While this can help them move things around better and save on fuel, some people worry that big companies are becoming too powerful in the shipping industry. There's a debate about whether it's better to use really big ships that can carry a lot of cargo, but need to take longer routes around Africa instead of going through the Suez Canal. This could lead to even bigger ships being made, but there are worries about how this would work, especially at important places like the Strait of Malacca. Even though people are talking about these changes, it's unlikely that big changes to trade routes will happen soon. However, recent events like conflicts or natural disasters have made companies think about how they can make their supply chains work better. These talks go beyond just ships. They cover everything involved in moving things around the world. Companies are looking at ways to reduce risks and avoid problems, like using different routes for transportation, managing their supplies better, and using technology to track goods in real time. They want to make supply chains that can handle surprises and keep working well. How to make shipping more efficient. As companies deal with these challenges and look for new ways to do things, everyone in the industry needs to work together. They need to come up with new ideas and keep goods moving smoothly across countries and continents. One important thing to talk about is how to make shipping infrastructure more efficient. Even though big ships can fit through the Panama Canal now, there are even bigger ships, like Maersk's Triple E-Class, that can carry more containers. These huge ships, some holding up to 24,000 containers, are causing problems for American ports. They need to be able to handle these giant ships, but it's not easy. Companies are also thinking about how they can use the Panama Canal more efficiently. Since 2014, when the canal started fitting these new, bigger ships, trade routes have changed a lot. Now the canal can even fit ships that carry over 12,500 containers, with some holding up to 15,000. But with even bigger ships out there, like the Megabox 24S that can carry up to 24,000 containers, American ports are facing new challenges with their infrastructure. These really big ships need special equipment and ports to handle them when they come and go. It's really important to invest in port facilities so that these huge ships can travel around the world's trade routes smoothly. Companies want to speed up their work to be more efficient and spend less money. While this can help them move things around better and save on fuel, some people worry that big companies are becoming too powerful in the shipping industry. There's a debate about whether it's better to use really big ships that can carry a lot of cargo, but need to take longer routes around Africa instead of going through the Suez Canal. This could lead to even bigger ships being made, but there are worries about how this would work, especially at important places like the Strait of Malacca. Even though people are talking about these changes, it's unlikely that big changes to trade routes will happen soon. However, recent events like conflicts or natural disasters have made companies think about how they can make their supply chains work better. These discussions go beyond just ships. They cover everything involved in moving things around the world. Companies are looking at ways to reduce risks and avoid problems, like using different routes for transportation, managing their supplies better, and using technology to track goods in real time. They want to make supply chains that can handle surprises and keep working well. The main goal is to make supply chains that can handle unexpected problems while still working well. As companies deal with these challenges, everyone in the industry needs to work together. They need to come up with new ideas and keep goods moving smoothly across countries and continents.
It's important to talk about making our shipping infrastructure work better. While big ships can fit in our ports now, we need to focus on making sure everything runs smoothly inside the ports too. American ports are good at quickly loading and unloading ships, but the real challenge is managing all the containers once they're in the terminals. Instead of just making ports bigger, we should improve what we already have to make it easier to move containers around. In Europe, they've spent a lot of money on making their ports better. They've made their ports bigger and more modern, which helps ships come and go faster. Ports like Rotterdam in the Netherlands and Hamburg in Germany have gotten big upgrades to handle bigger ships and more cargo. The last time a big expansion happened in the United States was at the Port of Savannah in Georgia. They started a project in 2015 called the Savannah Harbor Expansion Project, SHEP. They dug the river deeper so that bigger ships could move through it better, especially when the water levels were low. The project didn't just make the river deeper, it also included building things to help protect the environment around it. One of the big reasons they decided to make the river deeper was because ships were getting bigger. These huge ships need deeper water to float in and bigger spots to park when they're full of stuff. By making the Savannah River deeper, the Port of Savannah made it easier for these big ships to come and go. This makes the port more competitive and brings in more business. The expansion project didn't just help the port, it also boosted the local economy. It created more jobs and attracted investment in things like warehouses and transportation. Making the port bigger also makes it more important for bringing stuff into the United States from other countries. With the port able to handle bigger ships, it becomes a key link in getting things from one place to another smoothly. It's not just about one port, though. It's about making a whole network of ports that work together. By spreading out the development of ports, it makes it easier for goods to move around the world without getting stuck in one place. This helps keep things flowing smoothly from one country to another. As ships keep getting bigger, ports need to keep up with them. This means they have to keep finding new ways to improve how they work. By always looking for ways to make ports better, we can keep goods moving around the world without any problems. This means using machines and computers to make things work better at ports. For example, they can use robots to move containers around, use smart programs to figure out where to put containers, and use systems that track containers in real time. These technologies can make things faster and more accurate. Digitalization is about sharing information between different parts of the shipping process, like ports, shipping companies, and customs. This helps things run smoother and reduces delays. Using green technology and renewable energy at ports can help protect the environment. It's also important to have good connections to different types of transportation, like trains and trucks, so goods can easily move from ports to other places. All these improvements need a lot of money and cooperation. Governments, businesses, and other groups need to work together and invest in ports to make them better. By doing this, countries can keep up with global trade, stay competitive,
and make sure goods keep moving smoothly around the world. The significance of expansion of Port Savannah. The recent expansion of the Port of Savannah is a big step in improving how goods move around in the United States. It shows how important it is to keep upgrading ports to stay competitive in the world and help the economy grow. Other places like Dubai and Singapore are also expanding their ports to handle more trade. By spreading out the work among different ports, we can handle big ships better and avoid traffic jams at just one port. Instead of focusing on a few big ports, it's better to have many ports working together to meet the changing needs of shipping. This expansion at the Port of Savannah is a big deal for the USA. It shows that investing in ports is vital for staying competitive globally and supporting the country's growth. Similarly, other places like Dubai and Singapore have also expanded their ports to handle bigger ships and make operations smoother. By spreading out the workload across multiple ports, we can handle large ships more efficiently and avoid congestion at any single port. It's important to develop a network of interconnected ports to meet the evolving demands of maritime trade, rather than relying heavily on a few major ports. This means that upgrading the Port of Savannah was a major step for the United States. It highlights the need to keep improving ports to stay competitive worldwide and promote economic growth. Other places, such as Dubai and Singapore, have also expanded their ports to handle larger ships and improve efficiency. By spreading the work across many ports, we can handle big ships better and avoid congestion at any one port. Instead of focusing on just a few big ports, it's better to have a network of connected ports to meet the changing needs of global trade. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below about this US port upgrade. Do you think this approach would solve the issue,